Hi guys, good morning and welcome to Primus Learning. Welcome to this edition of the program. So today we want to look at some advantages that we have using S3 as a storage environment, right? You may have been working with S3, in your AWS environment. You may have been storing your files in S3. You might have been using S3 as a data lake for your data, and you've just been focused the traditional way, right? Just uploading and downloading files and getting files, storing different formats of files in S3, and so on and so forth. There is another part of it, and that is exactly what we want to explore today. That is querying CSV files, JSON files, Parquet files, and other formats of files from S3. So querying files that are stored in S3 using Python. So Python packages like Moto3 and so on. And in this particular video, we'll be looking at AWS SageMaker notebooks. So that's where we'll be querying some of the objects from S3. So in this video, we will first of all create a SageMaker notebook. So a SageMaker notebook instance using Terraform, right? So we'll create a notebook instance using Terraform from where we will be running our queries. And so you can see that it's interesting to know that you can query data that's stored in S3 directly as you would do query data from a database, from a traditional relational database, right? So writing some queries and using them to query data that's stored in S3. And we'll see other things, right? Like downloading files from S3, using Python, querying CSV files that are stored in S3. We'll be querying JSON format files that are stored in S3. We'll even see how you can write data to S3 directly from your Python code or from your SageMaker environment. So for instance, you are a data scientist working in a team, and you have data that's stored in S3 and you want to quickly get that data. We'll learn how you can do that. Or you want to quickly write data and store it somewhere. We will learn how to do that in this session. So some prerequisites that you need to take care of: you have to make sure that you have an IAM role that will be used for the creation of the SageMaker notebook instance. So that's the very first thing to understand. You need a role that has permissions such that you'll be able to query, you'll be able to create an instance, you'll be able to create a SageMaker instance. Remember, we're using we're using Terraform to create these resources. Then you have to make sure that you have an S3 bucket to use. So I have an S3 bucket that is created. I will show you in a moment. Then we'll have to create the instance. And we'll make sure to have a CSV file that will be queried in the course of this video. So let me just quickly show you the S3 buckets that we have out here available already. So this is the Primus Learning demo bucket. That's the bucket we'll use to store our artifacts. And we have some files in here, right? So we have some output labs, JSON files, output to S3. We have some things that I previously did. And then you have some other files here, transaction files, and so on and so forth. So we'll be working with these files. So make sure you have some CSV JSON files that you can upload to your S3 bucket. So just create a bucket. If you don't know how to create a bucket, watch some of our videos. I'll have a video showing you how to create an S3 bucket and how to upload stuff inside. So yep, I'll share that link in a moment. So I'm surely going to include it in the description page of this video. All right, guys. So let's get after it with the Terraform code that will be used to create to create an instance, to create the SageMaker instance. And we are not focused on that code, right? That's not why we want to do this video. We want to do this video in order to show you how to really query data that is stored in S3. So that's the purpose of this video. But all right, let's go into the code. This is the snippet of code that creates the instance that we'll be using for this video, right? So we have a resource. The resource is the AWS SageMaker notebook instance. So you want to create a SageMaker notebook instance, and the name is notebook instance. Like this is the name that Terraform recognizes, and the name that you're giving the notebook instance, what will appear on your console once you've created will be Primus Learning Notebook. So this is the notebook we'll be logging into. Then remember I said you needed a role. So you need a role, an execution role. You can use the SageMaker execution role. This is a default role that comes that AWS has out there. You can use that role, you know, and not necessarily have to create a role to run this code. And then you simply give a tag. So we're just tagging the instance, Primus Learning SageMaker instance. This is all the code that you need, guys, to be able to create this instance. Supposing that you have already an execution role, copy the ARN of the execution role and include it here. Define the machine type, the instance type that you want to use. So we are using an ml.t2.medium, which is pretty small. So depending on your workload, you can define it. And also your environment matters, right? So you will not just create a simple thing like this. You have to create it in a particular availability zone, in a particular VPC, in a particular subnet, you know, you want to concentrate your resources in a particular thing if this is enterprise-wide kind of thing. So this is just basic code that we want to get running such that we can have an environment to do our practice or to do our session, you know, to go through the session. So remember, guys, this can be absolutely one of the you know, the things you can use in interviews. So take, for instance, you're taking an interview, you can use this as one of the use cases that you build an environment where, you know, your data scientists are able to query data that's stored in S3 using SageMaker. And this is how you build it. You build it with Terraform using Terraform code, and then, you know, you wrote some Python scripts that, you know, uh, we're able to query data that's stored in S3. So that's basically it, guys. That's a simple use case. You can use this at work. You can use this, you know, for your practice. I'll put this code snippet in a repository that will be shared after this, and I'll put it in the bio or in the description page of this video. All right, so let's get after it. Now, remember, you have to have access to the AWS environment to be able to run this code, right? So currently, we are authenticated. So if I do AWS configure here, you see that we have an access key and a secret access key, and that's how it's able to recognize our AWS accounts, and that's why we'll be able to run stuff in here smoothly. So the secret key and access key that we created, I have a video also you can watch, check in my channel, which shows you how to create an IAM role. Once you create an IAM role and have access, you can definitely use the secret key and access key that you get after creating the role to be able to configure and run your Terraform script against an AWS account. So that's exactly what we did here. All right. So to initiate and get, you know, and get the provider, the AWS provider for AWS, or the AWS provider, repeating myself. So to be able to do that, you just need to run Terraform init. So we are initializing and making sure that we have all the plugins or everything that is needed. So we've done that. And remember, the only piece of code that we're using right now is this one. So it's this instance.tf. Forget about this one. I just created a SageMaker folder and created an instance.tf file under that folder. The other ones I'm using for my code, that we'll use during this demo. All right, so we've initialized our environment. So let's do Terraform plan to see what type of resources will be created as we go along, right? So you can run Terraform plan. And so once you run this, Terraform tells you, hey, this is what you'll be creating. You'll be creating an AWS instance, SageMaker instance. So you see one resource will be created, right? Just one resource, because we've defined just one resource here, which is a notebook instance. That's what Terraform is telling you and asking you if you want to go ahead. These are the resource things that it will create and all of that. So, all right. So we are sure that we want to create. So you say Terraform apply. And since I don't want to be saying yes after it's running, I'll just say auto approve right here. So do auto approve and just hit enter. And you watch how Terraform is using the HashiCorp APIs to be able to create resources. And you can see it started creating. AWS SageMaker notebook instance is creating. So you can see it will take a little while as it creates. So we'll be here as it creates. It may take about 4 or 5 minutes to create this. I'll pause this video, and once it's done creating, I will start it again so that I don't waste your time. Hi guys, we're back. And thanks for staying with us. So it took about 3 minutes 45 seconds to create these resources. So you can see apply has been completed, one resource has been added, nothing has been changed, nothing has been destroyed. So we've created a SageMaker instance. We can log into that SageMaker instance and prepare our AWS environment or our notebook instance from where we'll be querying S3. So let's get after it. So you can log into your AWS account and go to SageMaker. So let's search for SageMaker, access SageMaker. Sometimes it's slow to get there, but it's getting there. All right, so here we are. Let's go to notebook instances. So these are notebook instances. You have SageMaker Studio. We'll introduce SageMaker Studio, Canva, and so on some other time, but now we focused on the notebook instances. So you can see there is one notebook instance that is in service, and it is called Primus Learning Notebook Instance, just as we defined in our Terraform script. Now let's log into Jupyter Notebooks, right? So open Jupyter Notebook here. So open up a Jupyter Notebook environment for us. So it's loading. Just give it a moment. All right, we've had an environment up and ready. So you can select a notebook type that you want to use. For instance, if you're doing PySpark work, you can do that. If you're doing Spark R work, you can take that one. You have normal Python, so we'll take Conda Python 3. This is what we'll select. You have a terminal as well, and so on and so forth. So we'll select this one to get that notebook feel and look. So let's select that, wait for it. So it's loading, takes a couple of seconds. And we are ready. We have a Jupyter notebook environment ready. We can uh, get going with our code, right? So it's connecting to the kernel, should be ready in a moment. Now, the very first thing, oops, it failed to connect to the kernel. I think it's connected now. All right, the very first thing we want to do is see how you can write data to S3. So I put my files in one place so that we don't have to move from place to place. So we are done with this. After this, we'll just run Terraform destroy, and we'll destroy the resources, and you'll be done. So you can take an hour and do practice and destroy the resources. It shouldn't cost you anything in AWS. All right, so the first thing we want to do is simply write out something to an S3 bucket, right? We'll simply write out something to S3. So what we're doing in this code is we are importing a, an SDK, a Python SDK for AWS, which is called Boto3. This is a really neat SDK that you can use in fact, if you've been in the AWS space, if you're an AWS architect, a DevOps engineer, and so on, you need to know about Boto3. You need to take a look at it. It's a neat way to, access APIs programmatically using Python in the AWS space. Then we import pandas, pandas as PD. Pandas is a package. It's a package that data scientists use mostly to be able to, create data frames for their data sets. That's why we're using this, because we'll be creating a data set and sending it up to S3. Um, so you can import JSON. These other ones are for other things that I did, but we'll just have this here. So let's copy this. So we copy it over to the environment we just created. So let's just put the code here. See, it's ready to go. So you can see that my bucket is called Primus Learning Demo Bucket, which is the bucket I showed you earlier, right? This is the bucket we created earlier. And we want we want Boto3 to save this file, right? We want to use this API and save a file in our bucket, in this bucket called output file to S3. So we currently have an output file to S3 running in that is available in our environment. We can delete that one. So let's go to S3 and go to our bucket. And the bucket name was Primus Learning Demo. So Primus Learning Demo, I think. Primus Learning Demo Bucket. If I'm not mistaken, Primus Learning Demo Bucket, this one. And so we currently have some copy to this, output to S3. We can delete this one. This is a JSON format file. We can delete the two, right? We can delete these two. Nope, let's delete just one for now, the JSON one, because that's what we're doing in the JSON format. All right, so right delete here and delete object and go back to our code. So what we want to do is we want to simply write some contents, just like a simple file to S3, and that file should have what? That file should have these values, a name, and the name should be Jane Doe, and the ID should be this. So these are key value pairs, right? You use JSON to be able to write this, and that's why we're using the JSON format. And we are using Boto3 client here to be able to write to S3. So using S3 Boto3 client to write to S3. And what are we writing to S3? This is the content we are writing to S3. What's the the bucket name. So s3.put object, we want to put objects in a particular bucket, and this is the bucket name, Primus Learning Demo. And what is the key? The key is like the file name that you want to have on it. This is the key right here. Once the data is available in S3, please check S3 bucket. That's all the code is doing. So we're printing, please check S3 bucket once this has run. All right, let's execute. So you see it's running, it's doing its magic using the S3 API to, Boto3 is using the S3 API to interact and write data out to S3. So it's completed and it's telling us check S3 buckets. So let's go back to S3. You should see a file called output file to S3 CSV. It was existing already. The CSV one was existing already. So let's do JSON, the JSON format one now. All right, so let's run again. Yeah, I think we did. Just run. And it's asking us to check S3. So let's go to S3. Remember, we just deleted the JSON format, and now we have the JSON format back again. And it was executed at what time? December 10th. Today is December 10th, and this is the time we are running. So you can see this is the other one we just executed as well. So it replaced what the content that was available here earlier. So you've written data to S3 just as we were speaking. Now, the next thing I wanted us to do, right, was to query S3. That was the main part of this video. So we are able to write to S3 using Boto3. Now let's query S3, right? Let's query S3 directly. So to be able to query S3, let me copy this code over and explain it a little bit more. So let's go back here and put our code here. So what we're doing here is we're simply using Boto3 again. Remember, see, Boto3 is absolutely important. And we're defining a bucket name. Our bucket name is Primus Learning Bucket. And the key is this. There's a file in S3 called this. So want to look at the transaction history. Maybe you are working in the banking sector and you have files that are stored in S3. There's a file called transactions history 2020, and you want to look at it and see, hey, what are the transactions that were done in the last blah blah blah. What what do you have in that file? Want to see the content of that file, just as you query data in a normal database environment. So what are we using? We're using Boto3 client again, right? You see S3 client here. And then what are we using as an object? We are selecting an object content. And then we want to select it from where? From this particular bucket that we just defined above. So you see the variable bucket name here. We'll give bucket name. And then we're using a key. This is the key that we passed, defined here. And what's the expression? The expression is SQL. It's a SQL expression, right? It's typical, just like a normal SQL expression. And the expression is select star. So we want to select everything from this data set. We want to select everything from this data set. And so in using Boto3, you select an S3 object. It is an S3 object. You've already defined the object here, right? In normal SQL, you'll be selecting from a table, right? But here you're selecting from an S3 object. You've already defined that object. So the S3 Boto3 client is able to recognize that object, and you select a particular number of it. And so you are naming that object as, and the limit is 5. So you can make it 10, you can make it whatever. It's this typical query syntax here. You can make the limit 5, and then the format is CSV, right? So that's all you're doing. And then you bring the for each payload, get the records. So you want to print the records of the data sets that we get back from S3. And that's it. So if you run this, you see it quickly queries your database or your information that is stored in S3 and returns the first 10 records in your data set. So you see it queries, it selects everything from that data set that you defined above, and this is how it looks. So this is really, really neat, guys. For those who are working with large data sets, you can use this method to be able to query data sets in S3. All right, so that was querying CSV format data. So we can also query JSON format data, guys. So that was querying S3. We can also query JSON format data, the same syntax, the same type of thing. And I have the code ready here. So let's just run this. Same syntax, but this time it's just that it's JSON and no longer, see, the only thing that changes, right, is JSON and no longer CSV. And the key for this one is output file dot underscore lab dot JSON. So you could use anyone. You could even query the one that we just wrote to S3. You could go to S3 and select this file. Remember, we wrote this data today. So you can select this file, bring it in, and put it as the key that you want to query, and just run this. And you should be able to get back the first record. So remember, we wrote just one line of things, and so you're getting the limit of 5. But since it's just one record that we wrote, you can get only one record. In this case, you can get anyone. So you see, this is how you query JSON format. Any other format, this is how you would use it. You use Boto3 to be able to query your data sets. Guys, so this is what I wanted to show you quickly. You can also download your data directly into your working environment, right? So to do that quickly, you can use this code snippet here and be able to download your data from S3 directly into your working environment. So let's put this here and say you want to download this file that we just queried in S3 and really see all the content. So same thing, you import JSON, import Boto core, and you're able to use the same bucket, same thing. This time you're using the Boto3 resource. This is the resource. It's like a wrapper that Boto3 has. Well, the Boto the S3. Well, the Python SDK for AWS has put together so that you should be able to query data in, or to download, in this case, download data from S3. And we're using the S3 resource, the boto3.resource here, which is like a wrapper just to get your data. So what we're doing is we want to get into a bucket and download a file with this particular key, right? And how do you want to save that file? So this is the key of the file. This is the key of the file where the object is stored. But this is the key of the file you want to see, right? You want to download the file in this with this key. So you want to name the file with this key. So you could name it Primus Learning underscore from S3, right, .csv. So you want to see the file in CSV format. And if you have the error, if there's no file there, just tell us that the object does not exist. So if there's no file with this name up there, just tell us that the file does not exist. This is what this code is all about. So let's run this. You see, it hasn't told us that there's no file, that the object does not exist. And so to see that file, you simply go back to your environment, and this is the file we just downloaded, and we downloaded it seconds ago, right? A few seconds ago. And this is the beauty of this thing, guys. So you can see the data set right here. You can click on it and see the data set. You can view the data set directly from here. All right, guys, this is all about it. I just wanted to show you how to write data to S3, how to query data from S3 using the Boto client, how to query data from S3 using CSV, and JSON formats, and then also how to download data from S3. These are the 4 things we're looking at, and we're able to do this by using what we call Terraform to create the instance. So we created an instance. That's the first thing we did, right? And we made sure that we had an S3 bucket called we had an S3 bucket that was called Primus Learning Demo Bucket. Then we created a notebook instance called Primus Learning Notebook. We had a role. We used an AWS existing role called the SageMaker Amazon SageMaker execution role and just copied the ARN over. We just defined the instance type called ml.t2.medium, and we're able to execute this and get a working environment. So after doing all of that, you can clean up your environment. You don't want to have hanging resources to having charges. You just do Terraform destroy, and then you can say dash dash auto approve. I want to approve because I know that everything looks good. I want to destroy everything that I created earlier, and just hit enter. And it should take a moment to destroy all the resources that we created. You see, it's planning to destroy. One will be destroyed because we created just one resource. So you see, it's in the process of creating, of destroying. It's destroying your notebook instance. In a moment, it should be done, and we are clean again. And guys, so this is it. That's what I wanted to give you today. Thanks for listening. And I'll attach all these files, the 4 files that we looked at today, and of course the Terraform code as well in the description section. I'll put it in a repository and attach it in the description section so that you can take a look, try it out by yourself, and let me know in the comment section how this goes. Thanks, and bye-bye.